Elenina was 74 years old when it happened. She had just stepped into the familiar and comforting space of her own bathroom, fully expecting another ordinary and uneventful morning to unfold as it always did. But instead, in an instant, she was struck by a disorienting and terrifying wave of sudden dizziness. Her heart was still beating a frantic but steady rhythm in her chest. This was not a heart attack, nor was it a stroke, but something felt profoundly and deeply off. Unbeknownst to her, her body's circulation had just taken a dramatic and dangerous dip. And, surprisingly, the root cause of this alarming event was not some rare or esoteric medical condition. It was something that she had done, a private ritual. For more than 50 years of her life, something that most women are consistently told is perfectly normal and even healthy, the act of masturbation. But here is the crucial and often misunderstood truth of the matter. It was not the act of pleasure itself that had created this precarious problem. It was, instead, how she had been performing this act, day after day, for many decades. The very habits that had seemed entirely harmless and natural in her 30s had quietly and insidiously transformed into significant physiological risks in her 70s. These were habits that no one had ever thought to warn her about, leaving her vulnerable and completely unaware of the potential consequences. Hello, my name is Dr. Lily Stones. For more than 3 decades, I have dedicated my entire professional career to the profound and humbling work of supporting women just like you. Strong, wise, and deeply caring women who possess an unwavering desire to live their lives fully, joyfully, and, most importantly, safely in every single season of their existence. I have learned over these many years that while we, as a medical community and as a society, talk a great deal about cholesterol levels, about blood pressure management, and about maintaining bone strength, we very rarely, if ever, discuss what actually happens to your delicate circulatory system and your capacity for intimacy in your later years. And yet, this particular area of your health can profoundly influence everything else, from your daily confidence and your overall mood to the quality of your sleep and the depth of your relationships. Today, I want to talk to you about something that is incredibly and vitally important: the hidden and often unseen ways in which your personal pleasure habits might be impacting your circulatory health. My intention is not to evoke feelings of shame or to instill fear, but rather to inform, to empower, and to gently guide you toward a safer and more harmonious relationship with your own body. Because I have had the privilege of listening to retired teachers, dedicated nurses, brilliant artists, and proud grandmothers who have come to me with the very same quiet and deeply held concerns. They did not realize that 4 extremely common pleasure mistakes that were completely normal and inconsequential in their youth, can actually create a series of small but very serious physiological problems after the age of 60. Why does this happen? It happens because your body, in its infinite wisdom, changes. Your blood vessels naturally and progressively lose some of their youthful elasticity. Your hormonal levels, which once provided robust support for arousal and for the body's healing processes, begin to decline. The very skin of your intimate areas becomes thinner and more delicate. And so, what once brought you a sense of relief, comfort, and even joy can now, if it is done without a new and heightened sense of awareness, lead to a cascade of negative effects, including micro-traumas to delicate tissues, a gradual reduction in your sensitivity, and even significant issues with your circulation. So, in this comprehensive discussion, I am going to carefully and compassionately walk you through the 4 most common mistakes that I see in my clinical practice and, far more importantly, how you can mindfully adjust your habits to provide foundational support for your long-term health and vitality. Please, I urge you to stay with me until the very end, because mistake number 4 is one that over 90% of the older women I speak with are making, and simply correcting this one habit could make a truly dramatic and life-altering difference in your overall well-being. If this particular topic feels important and relevant to you, please take a brief moment to like this video, to subscribe to the channel, and to tap the notification bell. That is the very best way that we can ensure you continue to receive real, practical, and science fact-backed health advice that is designed specifically for women just like you. And if you are already watching and this message is resonating with you, please let me know that you are here by typing a 1 in the comments section below. And if you are not quite sure yet, or if you feel a sense of skepticism, please type a 0. I would be genuinely grateful to know where you are at on this journey. Let us now begin with the very first mistake. One that seems entirely innocent, and perhaps even efficient, but which can silently and progressively place a significant amount of stress on your blood vessels every single time you engage in it. Mistake 1. Rushing through pleasure and triggering a circulatory shock. Over the many years of my practice, I have had the honor of sitting across from hundreds of strong, thoughtful, and incredible women. A great many of them have confided in me about their most personal and private habits, often with a palpable sense of guilt, shame, or deep confusion. They will say things to me like, "Dr. Stones, I just needed a brief moment of relief, something quick to take the edge off, something to help me fall asleep." And while that underlying intention is completely and totally understandable, the physiological reality is that this kind of speed can dramatically backfire, especially after the transition of menopause. When you rush through the act of self-pleasure, your body reacts as if it has been suddenly and unexpectedly startled. Your heart rate begins to climb with a precipitous and rapid intensity. The intricate network of blood vessels in your pelvic region first constricts tightly and then is forced to dilate with a sudden and powerful surge. This violent and abrupt hemodynamic shift can place a tremendous amount of undue pressure on the fragile and microscopic capillaries that are located within the clitoris and the vaginal tissues. These are areas of your body that are now significantly more delicate and vulnerable due to the natural effects of age and the profound shifts in your hormonal landscape. A younger woman's circulatory system, with its greater elasticity and resilience, could likely absorb this kind of sudden and intense pressure without any significant issue. But past the age of 60, your arteries are inherently less flexible and more rigid. Your circulating levels of estrogen, the very hormone that once provided such robust support for healthy blood flow and for the body's rapid healing processes, are now significantly and permanently lower. This means that your tissues are far more prone to experiencing micro damage from this kind of pressure, and they are considerably less capable of bouncing back and repairing themselves quickly. Here is what I truly want you to remember from this discussion. This is not a conversation about shame or about morality. It is a conversation about pure and simple physiology. The act of repeatedly rushing your stimulation may not feel like a significant issue in the moment itself, but over the course of time, it methodically and progressively chips away at your body's innate and beautiful ability to respond with genuine pleasure. You may begin to notice a decrease in your overall sensitivity, a slower and more sluggish arousal response, or even an occasional and unsettling feeling of numbness in the very places where there used to be a comforting sense of warmth and a deep feeling of connection. Even worse, this chronic and habitual overstimulation creates a state of persistent tension, not just within your physical tissues, but throughout your entire nervous system. It relentlessly sends a message to your body that pleasure is something to be hurried through and completed, rather than something to be relaxed into and savored. And that particular mindset, that ingrained habit of urgency, can quietly and insidiously erode not just your personal experience of intimacy, but also your fundamental confidence in your own body's capabilities. I have said this many times in my clinic, and I will say it to you here and now as well. How you treat yourself in your private moments has a direct and undeniable influence on how you feel in your public life, on how you connect with others, on how well you sleep at night, on how you show up in your relationships, and on how your very heart responds to the simple act of touch. Intimacy is not just about reaching a climax, it is about presence. It is about circulation, and it is about breath. When you rush that delicate and intricate process, you effectively rob yourself of all the gentle and nourishing signals that your body desperately needs in order to feel safe, to feel open, and to feel truly and completely alive. And even if you are consciously making an effort to slow things down, you might still be making a second, equally important mistake, one that is almost entirely unconscious for most people, but which has a profoundly powerful effect on your nervous system and your blood flow. Let us explore that in the next part. Mistake 2. Holding your breath and tensing your pelvic floor, silently choking off circulation. There is a quiet and pervasive pattern that I have observed in so many of my patients over the years. It is a pattern that does not show up in any blood tests, and it is certainly not something that is mentioned in any of our medical textbooks. But it undeniably and visibly shows up in their bodies and in the stories that they share with me. A great many women over the age of 60, during their moments of private self-pleasure, unconsciously and habitually tighten their entire core. Their shoulders begin to creep up toward their ears. Their abdominal muscles stiffen and become rigid. And without even realizing that they are doing it, they hold their breath. This may seem like a very minor and insignificant detail, but I assure you it has major and far-reaching physiological consequences. When your pelvic floor tightens in this way, and your breath becomes shallow or is held completely, your body immediately shifts into a mild but very real fight or flight response. Your sympathetic nervous system becomes alert, activated, and rigid. As a result, your blood vessels throughout your body, including those in the pelvic region, constrict. And instead of opening up to allow a rich and abundant flow of oxygenated blood into your clitoris and your vaginal tissues, the circulation is effectively cut off right at its source. Why does this matter so profoundly? It matters because the clitoris is one of the most exquisitely blood-sensitive structures in your entire body. It requires a soft, steady, and uninterrupted flow of blood in order to swell and to properly activate the thousands upon thousands of nerve endings that are responsible for producing the sensation of pleasure. When your breath is restricted and your muscles are clenched and tight, you are sending the polar opposite message to your body. Your body begins to physiologically prepare itself for a state of stress, not for a state of pleasure. Over time, this unconscious and habitual tension becomes deeply ingrained. That habit, in turn, progressively weakens the very muscles and the delicate blood vessels in the precise areas that you are trying to nurture and to awaken. The ultimate result is a gradual and disheartening diminishment of your sensitivity, a slower and less robust arousal response, a decrease in your natural lubrication, and a body that begins to treat the very idea of pleasure as a threat instead of as a beautiful and welcome gift. I have had women look at me with a sense of genuine astonishment when I simply ask them, "Were you holding your breath?" They will pause for a moment, reflect, and then they will nod their heads in recognition, because no one ever told them that the simple act of breathing deeply and fully is just as vital to their healthy intimacy now as their hormones once were in their youth. Here is the fundamental truth of the matter. The older we get, the more our bodies crave a sense of cooperation over a sense of control. You simply cannot force pleasure. You have to gently and lovingly invite it in. The next time you are with yourself in a moment of intimacy, I want you to try something very simple. Breathe slowly and deeply into your belly. Let your belly fully expand on the inhale. Consciously soften your shoulders away from your ears. Feel your hips and your pelvic floor release their tension. This gentle and mindful shift in your awareness does not just feel good. It actively works to restore your blood flow, to awaken your nerves from their slumber, and to signal to your entire nervous system that it is finally safe to let go. Please, remember this: when you stop breathing, you stop flowing. And when you stop flowing, you stop feeling. But even when you have mastered the art of breath and of softness, there is another pervasive habit that can quietly sabotage your vitality. And this one often begins with the very best of intentions. Let us talk about it next. Mistake 3: daily stimulation without recovery, quietly draining your drive. For a great many women, and especially for those who are navigating the significant life transitions of retirement, of widowhood, or of profound loneliness, the act of daily self-pleasure can become a very familiar and comforting routine. It can serve as a way to manage accumulated stress, as a brief moment of escape from daily worries, or as a substitute for the deep and meaningful connection that has been missing from their lives. And in your 30s or your 40s, that kind of daily rhythm might have felt wonderfully and consistently energizing. But after the age of 60, your body's physiological needs change quite dramatically. What once felt restorative and rejuvenating can now, over time, become significantly depleting if there is no adequate space and time allowed for recovery. I want you to think of it in the same way that you would think about physical exercise. When you were younger, you might have been able to work out with great intensity every single day without requiring much rest in between. But now, as you have wisely aged, your muscles require more time to rebuild and to repair themselves. Your body's energy stores take a longer time to replenish. Your tissues simply do not bounce back from exertion quite as quickly as they once did. The very same principle applies to your delicate and intricate intimate system. When the act of self-pleasure becomes a daily and unvarying habit, especially when it is performed without any variety or any mindful periods of rest, you may begin to notice a series of subtle but significant shifts in your experience. You might perceive a diminished or muted quality of sensation, a lingering and unsettling feeling of numbness, or even a sense of physical irritation in your intimate areas. You might also feel emotionally flat or drained afterward, or you may find that it becomes progressively harder for you to become aroused on those occasions when you truly and genuinely want to be. One of my patients, a wonderful woman named Brenda, once shared something with me that truly broke my heart. She said, "Dr. Stones, I do it every single day, but I feel emptier and more hollow afterward. I thought it was supposed to make me feel more alive." What Brenda did not realize at the time was that her body was not failing her in any way. It was simply overworked. Her nervous system, her delicate blood vessels, and even her emotional capacity were all sending her a clear and urgent message. They were asking for a pause. The process of recovery is absolutely essential for our long-term well-being. It provides your sensitive nerve endings with the necessary time to reset and to recalibrate themselves. It gives your hormones the crucial time they need to find their new equilibrium. And it allows your blood vessels the space they need to repair and to regenerate. Without this vital period of recovery, even something that once brought you a great deal of joy and comfort can, over time, become a significant source of fatigue and of deep and profound detachment. So, if you have found yourself locked into a daily rhythm of self-pleasure that no longer feels truly satisfying or nourishing to you, I want to wholeheartedly encourage you to take a deliberate and conscious pause. This is not meant as a form of punishment, but rather as a loving and compassionate invitation to your own body. By taking this time, you allow your natural and authentic desire to rebuild from within. You allow your precious energy to return and to replenish itself. Please remember, pleasure is not just about the frequency of the act. It is about the quality, the intention, and the deep sense of restoration that it can bring to your life. Still, even if you do slow down and give your body the adequate room it needs to recover, there is one more pervasive mistake that I see more often than any other. And this particular one does not begin in the body at all, it begins in the brain. Let us explore that next. Mistake 4. Relying on fantasy that overstimulates the brain, starving real intimacy. This next part of our conversation may be the most difficult and sensitive one to talk about. This is not because the subject is in any way shameful, but because it touches upon something that lies much deeper within us, our experiences of loneliness, our profound and often unspoken longing for connection, and our lifelong search for intimacy. Over the course of my many years in practice, I have met a great many women in their 60s, 70s, and beyond who utilize various forms of fantasy, romantic novels, vivid and cherished memories, or even sexually explicit media, to help stimulate their desire during their private and personal moments. And at first glance, there is absolutely nothing unusual or inherently harmful about that. After all, the human imagination is an incredibly powerful and beautiful tool. But for some women, and especially for those who find themselves relying on increasingly intense or progressively unrealistic forms of stimulation, a very quiet and insidious shift begins to take place deep within the intricate wiring of the brain. The kind of media and imagery that is so readily available to us today is far more stimulating, and in many cases, far more extreme and artificial than it was just a few decades ago. When the brain is repeatedly and consistently exposed to these kinds of heightened and often exaggerated experiences, it begins to fundamentally rewire how the process of arousal actually works. Your delicate dopamine receptors, the very ones that are responsible for responding to pleasure, can become progressively desensitized over time. Your emotional and your physical responses, in turn, begin to rely on a series of artificial highs that genuine, real-life connections simply cannot compete with. And slowly, often without you even realizing that it is happening, your body may gradually stop responding to the gentle, nuanced, and authentic touch of a real person. You may find that real and genuine intimacy begins to feel less exciting, or that it feels emotionally distant and unfulfilling. This is not because there is anything wrong with you, but because your brain has been methodically trained to expect something else entirely. I have had patients sit across from me in tears, whispering things like, "I do not feel anything when I am with my partner anymore," or "I just feel completely numb, like I am broken." But they are not broken. They are simply, and often tragically, conditioned. This profound shift within the brain does not just affect your sense of desire, it also directly affects your blood flow. You see, the process of arousal is not just a function of the body, it begins in the mind. When the mind is chronically overstimulated, it can confuse and disrupt the delicate and complex cascade of neurological and hormonal signals that are responsible for supporting a healthy and robust circulation of blood to the pelvic area. This means that there is less blood flow to the clitoris, which in turn leads to a reduction in natural lubrication and a growing and deeply disheartening sense of disconnection from your own body. And for women over the age of 60, a time when our blood vessels are already more fragile and our hormone levels are already naturally lower, this complete breakdown in the crucial brain-body connection can be especially and profoundly disheartening. Now, let me be perfectly and unequivocally clear. This conversation is not about inducing feelings of guilt or about passing any form of judgment. It is about fostering a deep and compassionate understanding. When you know what is happening inside your own body, you then possess the incredible power to change it. If you have been relying on intense forms of fantasy or on various types of media to feel something, and especially if you have been doing so more often than not, it might be the right time to gently and consciously step away. This is not because pleasure itself is wrong, but because your brain may be in desperate need of a period of time to reset, to recalibrate, and to remember how to respond to the natural, beautiful, and authentic sensations that come from genuine connection and from simple, loving touch. Here is the wonderfully encouraging part of this story. Your brain has the magnificent capacity to heal. Your blood flow can absolutely return to its former state of health. But this process of renewal begins with the conscious choice to change how you engage with your own body. It starts with the intentional act of replacing the habit of over-stimulation with the practice of mindful and intentional presence. Take a deliberate step back from the screens and from the scripted and often unrealistic scenes they portray. Try to reconnect with your own cherished memories, with the power of your own imagination, or even just with the pure and simple experience of physical sensation, touching yourself without any expectation or goal. Allow your body the time and the space it needs to relearn its own unique and beautiful rhythms. Let your brain rediscover what real and genuine arousal feels like, without all of the distracting and often overwhelming external noise. This profound and intentional change does not just affect your capacity for pleasure. It can ripple out and positively impact your sleep, your mood, your fundamental sense of self, and your connection with others. You are not too old to feel deeply again. You are not too far gone to enjoy intimacy in a way that is profoundly fulfilling and life-giving. But that beautiful possibility depends on one single thing: your willingness to make a change. And that is precisely what I would like to talk about next. The kind of change that begins not with a pill, not with a medical procedure, but with a simple and powerful decision. Let us walk through what that looks like together in our final part. The path to reconnection, a wiser, more nourishing way. I want to speak to you now, not just as a physician offering clinical advice, but as a woman who has had the profound honor of walking alongside thousands of others through some of the most vulnerable and intimate chapters of their lives. If what we have discussed so far in our conversation resonates with you in any way, if you have noticed subtle or significant changes in your sensitivity, in your desire, in your confidence, or in your fundamental connection with yourself, please know this with all of your heart: you are not alone. And more importantly, you are not broken. What you may be experiencing is not the end of something precious. It is, in fact, the beginning of a beautiful and powerful opportunity to reconnect with your body in a wiser, more gentle, and more deeply nourishing way. Yes, it is true. The mistakes that we have explored together, the acts of rushing, of tensing, of overdoing, and of overstimulating, can all silently and progressively erode your circulation, your sensitivity, and your ultimate satisfaction. But here is the wonderfully good news. Every single one of these ingrained habits is completely and totally reversible. Your body may be aging, but it is still listening, it is still responding, and it is still magnificently capable of healing and of reawakening. And it all begins with a single, conscious decision. You do not have to give up on pleasure. In fact, the ultimate goal is the very opposite of that. You absolutely deserve an experience of intimacy that feels genuinely empowering, not one that leaves you feeling exhausted. You deserve a connection that renews your energy, not one that drains it. And you deserve a relationship with your own body that reminds you of your inherent worth, not one that leaves you questioning it. So, here is what I wholeheartedly recommend as a starting point. Begin by consciously slowing down. I want you to treat each private and personal moment not as something to be rushed through and completed, but as a sacred and deliberate act of profound self-care. Breathe deeply and fully into your belly. Allow your muscles to relax and to release their long-held tension. Let your body feel completely and totally safe again. Please remember, pleasure absolutely thrives in a state of safety, not in a state of stress. Next, I want you to consciously give yourself the gift of space between your sessions of self-pleasure. Allow your body the time it needs to rebuild its delicate arousal chemistry. Give your sensitive nerve endings and your intricate network of blood vessels the crucial time they need to rest, to repair, and to regenerate. Just like your joints or your muscles, your intimate systems also require and deserve their own periods of downtime and recovery. Third, I encourage you to gently and patiently retrain your brain. If you have been heavily relying on high-intensity fantasy or on overstimulating forms of media, I want you to try stepping away from it for a little while. Instead, begin to reconnect with softer and more authentic sources of arousal. The power of your own touch, the richness of your memory, the evocative nature of scent, the soothing quality of sound. Let your senses come back to life in a completely natural and unforced way. This process may take some time, but I promise you, it will be so incredibly worth it. And most importantly, I want you to consciously and intentionally shift your mindset. You are not chasing a version of yourself from 20 years ago. You are lovingly and respectfully creating a brand new relationship with the magnificent woman that you are today. A woman who honors her body, who trusts her own instincts, and who embraces pleasure not as a performance to be judged, but as a form of deep and essential nourishment for her soul. I have seen women in their 70s and their 80s reclaim their sensitivity, rebuild their confidence, and experience a depth of joy that they thought had slipped away from them forever. This did not happen because they found some kind of miracle cream or a magical and secret technique. It happened because they made a conscious and courageous choice to finally listen to their own bodies and to respond with a sense of love, not with a sense of shame. This is the very heart of true and authentic vitality in your later years. It is not about fighting your body, and it is not about fixing it. It is about working in beautiful and harmonious partnership with it, gently, patiently, and consistently. So, if you are still with me, If any part of this message has stirred something deep within you, I want you to take a quiet and reflective moment right now and to ask yourself, what is one small and manageable change that I can make today, not next week, not when you feel more motivated, today? Because genuine and lasting healing is not a single, dramatic leap. It is a series of tiny, consistent, and loving steps. And every single step that you take truly and deeply matters. You may not be able to control the past, but you absolutely have the power to influence what happens next. The choices that you make today can profoundly reshape how you feel in your body tomorrow, and in all of the tomorrows that are yet to come. And if this message has reached you, if it has given you a sense of clarity, of encouragement, or even just a comforting sense that you are not alone in your experience, I would be so honored to hear from you. Please, leave a comment below and let me know what part of our conversation spoke to you the most. Your voice matters more than you know, and your story might just be the very thing that helps someone else to feel seen and supported. 2. From my heart to yours, thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting me with this part of your journey. You are worthy of pleasure. You are worthy of healing. And you are absolutely and unequivocally worth taking care of. Stay well, stay connected, and until we meet again, please take the most gentle and loving care of you.